many years now. Yeah. Delighted, Leena, to welcome you to the CHRO conference. Awake, aware, arise. Yeah. And what better way for me to do all of this but with you. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us.
Delighted to be here, Harish. When did I last have a chance to have a cup of tea with you? So really looking forward to this.
Wonderful. And you know what? We have amidst us friends, associates, mentors, and champions of different functions, different organizations, and different walks from different walks of life. And if you just scroll through the attendees box, it will be like your contact list, I'm sure. Yeah, so that's what we have. Plenty of friends and some very interested and avid participants of the conference as well. Yeah, I've been attending a few of these over the last couple of weeks. This has really attracted a lot of avid participants. Yeah, and I can assure you that they're looking forward to this conversation. Yeah. And I don't want to make this very formal, Leena. I really want this to be a free-flowing one because we would like to hear from you about your innermost feelings, the challenges that you've been through, the successes that you have achieved, and the way you have gone about doing it. We would like to learn from your experiences. And that's what this evening is going to be. I hope that's fine with you.
Very ready for it, Harish.
Wonderful.
You know me well. Steer it wherever you think there's value for the audience. And I'm also seeing it as a conversation, so want to hear from you as well, your reflections and insights.
Sure, sure. Congratulations on the latest honor. Yeah, Global Indian 2020 ET Women Leaders Award. Yeah, it really makes us proud. And I was just telling somebody the other day, Leena needs a new cap. Her cap is overflowing with feathers. Yeah, but we are really proud of you, Leena. Well done. And let's hope that this is only the halfway mark. Yeah, many, many, many more accolades and achievements to follow.
Thank you very much. There's so many on this call, including you, Harish, that I am thankful for. So many mentors on this call. I saw Gurdeep, Prem, you. There's so many of you who have contributed to my success and growth as a professional. So I really feel humbled to be on this call and thankful. And the latest accolade is a reflection of all of your mentoring as much as it is of my hard work.
That's typical you, Leena. Yeah, modest, but you know how to take it in your stride and keep building on. Wonderful. In fact, I have to begin this by saying that you are a role model for many, many folks. Yeah, I meet a lot of young men and women in colleges, in organizations, who dream of breaking the mold. And in you, they see a role model, a significant high-performing leader in the global stage. Yeah, with humble beginnings from Kolhapur, Sangli, yeah, Jamshedpur, Mumbai, London, and now globetrotting. Yeah. Now, in your journey, I'm sure there have been a number of development shifts that you have experienced. And you must have learned your lessons and changed gears on the way. Could you just give us your own quick recap of how you see your life journey thus far?
You know, what I'll try and do, Harish, is to break it up into a few life lessons and combine some of the stories together. So let me start a little bit with one of the things I believe very passionately as a woman leader about ambition, about the ability to dream big. Ambition is a really difficult word for women. It's far more difficult for women than for men. And I'll tell you a little bit of the social conditioning and history beyond there. You know, so I remember growing up in Kolhapur, and there was no proper school for girls. The school that I grew up in, still called the first batch of the first school, first cohort that passed from that school. So you can imagine there were really not many role models I could look up to growing up. Yeah. And it was always a battle to say, I wanted to do engineering or I wanted to study more. I remember my mother constantly refraining, saying, if you're so ambitious, who the hell is going to marry you? You know, I still sort of remember those words all the time. So ambition is really difficult for us because it's not always parents, but social conditioning, all of that makes it much harder to dream big. Yeah. And therefore, my sort of first life lesson, or one that I want to really talk to all men and particularly women on this call, is to try and be explicit about ambition. And you know, the way that it's scary actually. I mean, you go to Hamleys today, which is like the biggest toy store in the country, in London, in the most developed city of the world, or one of the most developed cities. And still the girls section is all Barbie dolls and lipsticks, and the boys section is all science toys, etc., you know, Lego, bricks, science toys. Even today at 5 years old, you're told what you really need to do is look pretty and wait for your Prince Charming. Or the experiment that was done with 700 schools in Britain recently, where 5-year-olds had to draw pictures of all professions: astronomers, scientists, teachers. And only 2 professions, nurse and teacher, did the young toddlers, the boys and girls, draw women. For every other profession, CEO, what have you, it was always a man. So it's really, really important. One of the things I have benefited from having good sponsors and leaders is those who encourage that ambition. Because if you don't have that ambition, you can't break through. Yeah? So I started, you know, with all these battles to say, yes, I want to study more, I want to do more. You know, going to XLRI was like a big adventure. For my father, it was 48 hours away from Kolhapur. So the only reason he said, before he sent me, he said, listen, you must marry somebody I pick for you before the age of 24. And only if you're saying yes to that will I support you to go to XL. I mean, you can't even tell these stories to some of your colleagues here. They don't get it. What is arranged marriage is a long story by itself. Leave alone say that my father pretty much said, unless you're ready to do that, don't catch this train to Jamshedpur. So really important to keep your dreams in the middle of all of that. Yeah. The second, and this Herminia Ibarra has done some great work on ambition and research. And what she said is one of the reasons women don't break through into the top echelons is because they are more realistic. You know, it's very rarely that it'll be a woman leader who will stand up and say, I will double the size of this business. Yeah. A woman leader will not say it because she will think, it's not practical, it's not realistic, it has not happened in the last 5-6 years. We're just conditioned to be much more practical, grounded in reality, much less courage to just put our ambition out there. And I can't underline how important it is, because even today, when I read the performance development plans of the top 500 people in Unilever, what I see is all the men are saying, I want to be CEO of Unilever. All the women are saying, I just want to do my current job really well and have an impact. And if you keep saying, I want to do my current job very well and have an impact, it's much harder for the company to understand how to grow and develop you. So that's one big thing I would say. The second is really putting your hand up for all the grassroots roles. I think it was a huge challenge, you know, being in Ambattur factory, being in Taloja factory. Sometimes I wonder why I've never sat and told these stories even to some of my colleagues, you know. The fact when I went to Ambattur in the industrial estate, I was like the only woman in the entire industrial estate. So the buses as they came in the morning would take a short pause where everybody in the bus would have a chance to peep out and look at me, because I was a real, you know, novelty in the entire industrial estate. So, you know, putting your hand up for all the grassroots roles, you know, whether it's working in Ambattur factory, working in Taloja factory or chemicals factory, you know, doing the sales stint, always putting your hand up for some of the grassroots roles, because unless you understand the levers of our business, how do you manufacture stuff? How do you sell stuff? How do you distribute stuff? So it's so important to put your hand up for some of those grassroots roles to strengthen your knowledge and understanding. The third thing is to, you know, so I'm trying to sort of pull it together. You know, the third thing is the elephant and the mouse, you know, story that sort of shows you what it is to be in the minority. Yeah. And what the pressure that brings, you know, all the roles I've done, including the CHRO role, I've been the first woman in the role, which is an incredible privilege. But make no mistake, it's a huge burden as well. because everyone looks at you and expects all women are like you, which it is not. You're just representing one woman, one set of ambitions, one set of things. So I often quote the elephant and the mouse story. You know, so what is the elephant and mouse story? When you're an elephant and a mouse trapped in a room together, the elephant spends no time thinking about the mouse. No time at all. It doesn't even come into the elephant's reckoning. But for the mouse, the day and night begins with thinking about the elephant. How do I stay safe? How do I be in a corner where the elephant doesn't accidentally kill me? When you are in a minority, when you are the mouse, the majority is like the elephant. So I remember so many meetings where I would be petrified to open my mouth because I would be the only woman in 500 people, the only woman in 300 people, the only woman in 25 people, including when I was on the management committee of Hindustan Lever. You're the only woman in the room. You always have to think about the majority. How is this message going to land? What difference is it going to make? So some of those things that you carry as a minority, you know, huge amplification of your successes, huge amplification of your failures. And it needs a certain kind of peer support. And it needs a certain kind of sponsorship and mentorship to support the mouse, the one who's feeling like a minority in that moment. So when I look back, I see those experiences of how I had to make sure, and like I said, I was tremendously lucky to have sponsors and mentors. In many cases, I've reached out and asked for sponsors and mentors to really build on that. Yeah, like I still have that little notebook where every time I managed to speak up and say something that I really wanted to speak, I give myself a star. You know, little things, just give yourself a star. Encourage. At the end of the day, say, did I make this points that I wanted to, or was I too scared to speak my mind? The other thing is be cognizant of the sacrifices. Yeah, I mean, last 8 years, Kumar's living out of a suitcase. Yeah, my husband does 1 week here, 1 week in India. Thanks to COVID, we're back to the same city at the same time. Yeah, there really is, it is so important that you have a partner who's willing to support you with that. Yeah, but being clear that all of this success, there are sacrifices, having family conversations about how far you want to go. What are you prepared to give up? What are you prepared to lose to make what you want to do real? It's really, really important. And then I really believe when I look at my transition, yes, there's the usual, there was the first phase was about me desperate to blend in. Yeah, I wanted to conform. That was the time I made sure I tied my hair tight, wore safety boots, looked like the capable men around me. I just wanted so hard to conform, to blend in, to sound like the majority. That was my first phase. Maybe the first 5, 7, 10 years of my career was really blending in, conforming, being careful with my voice. The next 10 years were where I found my own voice and was much more courageous, spoke my mind, created a greater vision of who and I wanted to be as a leader, a good combination of yin and yang. I want to bring my strengths, my femininity, my assertiveness, all of it together. So that was another phase. And I think this phase that I'm truly enjoying is the global citizenship phase, truly understanding how so much of what we've studied in Harish, how it operates across the globe. So hope that gives you a bit of sense. You know, these are all subjects of passion, Harish. So feel free to ask me to shut up when you think I've said enough.
No, I think all of these call for more detailed sessions, and I will not belabor anyone today, but I think it gives an insight into the kind of early challenges and the kind of spirit with which you swam through those early tides. Wonderful. You know, Leena, I've been engaging and facilitating with a lot of young women leaders, many of whom aspire to get to the C-suite someday. Yeah. Yes. And talking with them, I often hear of the roadblocks or the speed breakers. They call it the 3M.
Yes.
Marriage, maternity, and mobility.
Yes.
And you have sort of steered through all of these things. Yeah. Some due to your adroitness, and some because you were probably lucky in the kind of folks whom you came across, yeah, like Kumar, blessing which you can never sort of dream of again. Yeah. So tell us a little bit of, was this a challenge for you at all? And more than you, there are lots of women around you in levers. Yeah. So, and not everybody sort of managed all of these things in the same way. And as management development manager, you had the role of guiding and counseling many of these people too. So tell us a little bit about the reality of this, both in
Yeah.
India and outside India. How did
Yes.
you do it? And how are you seeing others doing it or struggling with it?
This is a very, very hard phase. You know, there is, and I'm not, it's the leaking bucket phase. This is true of Unilever and every country we operate in. Maternity, more in Asia, Africa, but maternity more across the world. Marriage, more in Asia and Africa. Yeah, that we lose women. And in Unilever too, 5 or 6 years ago, till we sort of made the progress we've made on gender balance, we lost 60% of the people who had a child. They didn't come back. After first child, they came back. By the time the second child happened, we lost 60% of our talented women. So this is a real issue everywhere. Yeah, let me underline that. So if you are in this phase where you're juggling a million balls and finding it so hard, please, you're not alone. We're all in this together. It's not easy. It's hard. And we've done a number of things as Unilever, and then I'll share a little bit of my personal story, because my personal story has also influenced a lot of the thinking in Unilever HUL, because I had the opportunity to influence some of those policies and practices. I think all of us, men and women, particularly women in our parts of the world, go through a very challenging 10 or 15 years when caregiving responsibilities are just overwhelming. You've got to look after young children, etc. And what is really, really important is the organization leans into support. Yeah. And we've done a number of things, daycare centers in half the countries we operate in, sabbaticals, 2 to 5 years for people who want it, job sharing. We have like 150 job sharing couples across the world where 2 people do a job. One does it for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The other does it for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Wow.
So you have to use a suite of things to support men and women to get through this phase. Project roles, long term. You've got to do a whole lot of these things. When I look at my own sort of personal story, absolutely. I was supported a lot by like I was saying, so many people on this call who supported me with the flexibility that Unilever is known for. Take your time, make sure you're giving priorities to both. But there are a couple of practical things, I want to say. One is, behind every successful man, there's likely to be a very tired woman. But behind every successful woman, there's a network of women who support her. Yeah. And I have really, really invested in the network of women. Yeah. My mother, my mother-in-law, my nanny, my sister-in-law, my sister, my cousins, because Murphy's Law always works. The day you have the most important meeting in office is the day your child will be sick. It just goes like that. And you have a very difficult moment in the morning saying, what am I going to do? Am I going to go for this important meeting? Or am I going to look after my child who clearly is in a bad place? And being able to make a call to a friend who cares about me, cares about what I'm trying to do, and who says, okay, don't worry, go for a couple of hours, I'll stand in and help, and you come back and I'll take over. It's been miraculous to have women like that. But it doesn't just happen. You have to invest in those. My mother, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my nanny are all passionate about my career, because I constantly engage them and say, this is what I'm trying to do. This is how I'm trying to make the world a better place. This is what I do has meaning and makes a difference. So they feel equally good to be part of your journey. And my success is their success. And they also gain vicarious pride in some of the things I'm able to do, some of the barriers I'm able to break. The other thing, and I say this to women everywhere, you have to pay it forward all the time. You have to pay it forward. You have to think about, how are we making it easier for women who come after me? The men need to ask that question, but the women even so. And when I reflect on my journey, I was in Trichy, as Ram was just saying, I was living in a hotel, which was quite sleazy, actually. Now, unless you're a woman living in that hotel, you're not going to know it's actually quite sleazy, and doesn't feel so comfortable. And I remember going and having a difficult fight with admin saying, you've got to change this hotel. It doesn't have even sort of bolting doors, and the staff are not very good. They're making all these, stupid remarks. Somebody knocked at my door at 3 o'clock in the morning and asked me if I needed pornographic films. You need to, but I didn't stop the journey at saying, make it safer for me in Trichy. I fought the battle to ensure that admin and everyone who was looking at it, the HR teams, tried to ask the questions around safety of hotels across the country. So my big advice is pay it forward, because the more we do that, the easier we'll make it for women coming after us. Yeah. Choosing a great life partner, absolutely important. Yeah, you've got to, if that doesn't work for you, it's going to be so hard. Yeah. And last but not the least, you need negotiating boundaries. Yeah, work is endless. Meetings are endless. Negotiating boundaries and saying, weekends I'm not available. This is my number. If you really have an emergency, call me on that number. Negotiation is not a strong suit of women. And again, I'm generalizing, but more and more research to say negotiating terms, negotiating boundaries, not exactly our strong suit. We have to lean in more to make that happen. Yeah. But it's also about changing the norms of what is seen as success and career. It should become normal for men and women to take a couple of years sabbatical to educate ourselves on the new skills. The world is seeing that the half-life of a skill is 2.5 years. It should be easy to go and take a break. The world was not designed, the world of business was not designed keeping women in mind. Yeah, it was designed. The first female MBA graduated from Harvard Business School 55 years ago. So it's not that hell of a long that we've had women in the workplace. So we have to question all the norms, processes, thinking, and recreate it with men and women. We have to recreate the career pathways. We have to recreate how work is done. Only then can we make it equitable for men and women. Yeah. But personally, I would say investing in my network of women, paying it forward, having a supportive life partner, negotiating boundaries for myself has all worked. But let me not make it seem like it's easy, Harish. There have been plenty of days I've felt guilty. There are plenty of days I've worried that my children are not going to turn out well. I have had nightmares about my children saying, oh my God, my mother was never there for us. We basically raised ourselves. Of course, the guilt, the nightmares, all of that is true. You still feel bad. But you've got to find a way for yourself through it, because you've got to believe in what you're doing and believe that it creates meaning and it creates impact for more people in the world. Yeah. And the other last thing before we go on to what you had next in mind, I think we have made, and I think women and men both are responsible, but even so women, we've made motherhood into this exalted perfection. Yeah. Everything's super perfect. We have to roll out that last chapati for all our kids. We've got to do everything perfectly. We've got to be there at every game that our kids play in. And I think what I have learned is to contract with my children what I'm going to be there for and what I'm not going to be there for, involving them in my career as well. I came to, and no different anyway, I came to the UK again. There are mothers who turn up for every football game, every rugby game. And you're talking 100 games in a season that the boys are playing. I talked to my boys and said, boys, do you really want me to turn up for all 100 games? They said, nah, no, mom, just come for the finals and that'll be good enough. And if we make it to the finals, of course, or if we don't come to the semifinals or whatever. So I think we've made motherhood so exalted, such an image of perfection, that we as women have to break that. Yeah, you can have help. Yeah, I had a lot of help. I had Clara, my nanny, who supported me. I had a full-time chef. I had, somebody who helped me with cleaning. I didn't put myself on the burden of being the perfect mom. I put myself on the burden to be an average, decent mom, but not the perfect superhero, superwoman mom. Yeah. So also recognizing we don't need perfection in all spheres of our life, but it's about balance. It's about being able to hold all the balls and juggle all the balls with some dexterity without putting ourselves the burden of being the best at every single thing we do, the best daughter-in-law ever, the best daughter ever, the best everything ever. I've given you a long story here.
So true, Leena, so true. In fact, this is a challenge for many women to be able to think of themselves
Yeah.
as balancing many things. They don't have to be the best of everything. Yeah, I often tell them saying that even in the Indian cricket team, everybody is not an all-rounder. The
Yes.
batsman is an average bowler. The bowler
Yeah.
is an average batsman, a below average batsman. They all need to field and make sure that they don't let the balls roll off to the boundaries. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you've got to do your main role perfectly well. If you're a batsman, make sure you score a few centuries. If you're a bowler, make sure you pick up the wickets early. Yeah.
Yeah.
And women sometimes tend to take too much onto
Yes.
their shoulders. Yeah. And they need to share it a bit. And men need to become a little more enlightened and share in it too. Yeah. I've learned it the hard way a little late in life. Yeah. Leena, you have been a role model in terms of diversity. You have been the custodian for diversity. And today you're the champion for diversity. Rarely do we find all three rolled into one. Yeah. And in you, we have one. And it is so heartening to hear that Unilever today has 50% of its management numbers as women. Wow. I hope that is not just a headline, in the ballpark kind of a thing. It's really true. Tell us, how did this happen? When did this happen?
It's a great question, Harish. Firstly, the achievement is even greater than the headline because in every country we operate in, we are ahead of the social norms, sometimes twice or thrice. I don't know if we have Anu on the call. In India, we have 40% women. Japan is twice what the national average is. Saudi Arabia, 3 times the national average. So in every country we operate in, we are far better. At least twice, more likely 3 times. The other thing I'll tell you about this achievement, which again the headline doesn't capture, we've done this across all functions. Yeah, which is, it's not that we put all the men in human resources and marketing and supply chain is all men and customer development is all men. Every function is balanced. And by balanced, I mean even the supply chain function and the female engineers in the company are today 40% women. Yeah, so that's what makes the achievement truly remarkable. It takes loads of leadership commitment and accountability. And I'm going to try and describe a very simple metaphor, and then maybe we can jump into the details. We call it building the house of gender balance. Firstly, we've stayed the course for almost 8 or 9 years. Yeah, we said in 2010 or 11 that we'd be 50-50. And it's taken us 8 or 9 years to get there. So it's not easy. Let me not say it's easy. The second is what I call building the house of gender balance. First is you've got to get the foundation sorted, which is you've got to build in real leadership commitment. Not all leaders buy into why we need a gender balanced world. Remember, I didn't use the word diversity. I said a gender balanced world, 50% men, 50% women. Yeah, the second is you've got to fix the frames, which is you've got to set targets, accountability very clearly. Yeah, we're never confused who's accountable for top line results in a business. We're never confused about who holds accountability for bottom line results, but we're somehow confused who holds accountability for driving gender balance. Without a doubt, it is the CEO on the top table. There is no question about it. So raising the frames is all about ensuring those targets happen. Then building the roof. Building the roof is all about ensuring ownership, the governance behind it. Yeah, which is we have a global diversity board, which is led by the CEO and has many, many senior leaders of the company. The Unilever Leadership Executive for 9 years now, every month when we meet together as a leadership executive, we review the numbers, we look at the scorecard, we say, is it moving? Yeah. So fix the roof. Then I would say all the interior designing inside. Yeah, all the enablers. And the enablers have to support the women, have to support the men to be advocates for inclusion, have to support the women for ambition, confidence, feeling like they can do it. And it has to change organizational practices and policies. We have a slew of policy. At last count, we have something like 126 policies. Everything from paternity leave, maternity leave, adoption, sabbaticals, what I spoke about, job sharing, different ways of working, you work, a new employment model that allows you to work for 6 weeks in a year with the company, the rest of the time is yours, all sorts of innovative things. And that's all the interior designing we've done. Loads of enablers to support men, support women, support the organization. And last but not the least, the landscaping. which is to make sure you lead for thought in this area, because there are not too many companies that have managed to do it. I wish I could tell you that there are 100 examples, just pick and learn. It is so rare. Unilever is such a rare example of a company that's managed to do it, that we feel it's also our responsibility to spread the word and share best practice. But there are a couple of things. So that's the simple house of gender balance. You've got to do all of that. You have to build this house properly. But I want to call out a couple of things. One is leadership accountability, and the second is the power of data. Yeah, we've done simple things for leadership accountability. Yeah, targets not just in terms of you've got to improve gender balance in your part of the organization, but targets in terms of balanced slates. For every appointment you make, how many men are you meeting? How many women are you meeting? If you're meeting 2 talented men, please make sure you're meeting 2 talented women. The appointment is on merit, but the balance slates you're measured for.
Wow.
Are you really shifting the needle on balance slates? Because if you balance, I'm 100% confident that 50% of the time you will appoint a woman. Yeah. And second is the power of data. We've used data, and maybe that's my engineering brain coming into activation. We have used the power of data massively. So for example, we have something very simple called the gender appointment ratio, which is the top 500 leaders in the company get a scorecard once a year, which tells them how many opportunities for appointment they had in the last 5-6 years, 50, 100, 200. How many times they appointed a woman. It's a very simple. Your gender appointment ratio ideally should be 1. But it shows so much insight on those who are having the opportunities and never making an appointment. We used to have some of the leaders who've had 100 opportunities and have never appointed a woman. Surely you can't tell me every single time it's been merit. There is an unconscious bias playing out. And on top of all, and very simply, I would say 2 things. You've got to look at the numbers, you've got to look at the culture, and you have to look at both in tandem. You've got to look at the culture because there's a huge amount of unconscious bias, stereotypes, biases that exist. And if you don't tackle them, you'll never make progress. But you've got to look at the numbers as well. You can't do cultural training for team after team that doesn't have a single woman at its table. What are they training for? They don't even know what it is to engage or work with women. So you've got to do it across both numbers and culture. And that's why we've run a huge program called Unstereotype that allows people to break norms, barriers. We've committed to 100% of our advertising being free of stereotypes and so on and so forth. So yes, it takes hard work. It takes tremendous commitment. It takes driving numbers and culture, but hell yes, you can do it.
An interesting question which has popped up there, Leena, is a lot of organizations talk about diversity, but they don't necessarily walk the talk when it comes to pay parity. Yes. I know that in Unilever, we don't have that issue, but is this something that you see around you in other organizations globally? Is pay parity an issue as well?
It's a big issue globally. Yeah, I am grateful and happy to say that Unilever, we don't have this issue. We, all the roles, men are paid exactly in line with the same principles as women. And I'm happy to say we report it in our annual report. So please make sure you look at the numbers. Sometimes you find that our women are paid slightly more than the men in totality, but it's a great story. But yes, it's an issue globally. In all PLC companies, for example, in UK, are expected to show what their gender pay gap is. And there is a 25% gender gap on an average that exists between men and women in many of the best known companies that we have. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason is bias and not realizing that women are being paid less than men. Women, I told you in the beginning, sometimes don't negotiate for packages as strongly as some of the more talented men do. So all of that leads to a difference. But it's also a demographic story because the averages are computed by saying total pay earned by men divided by the number of men, total pay earned by women divided by the number of women. And that also shows you the demographics. So if you have very few women, and those few women are not necessarily in the highest earners, divided by the number of women, that number will look anemic. So it's both, but it is a real issue. And, for example, Salesforce announced one morning that overnight they were going to correct all the gender gaps across the world, and they went on to do it. Yeah, I promise you in Unilever, if any day we find in any of our countries, this is the issue, we will correct it overnight. Yeah, but it is a number you have to monitor and keep an eye on. There is difference in pay between men and women in many large companies.
Leena, interesting. Not only are you today a leader in the organization that you work in, Unilever, you are seen also as a leader globally across companies. You're seen as a woman leader of stature. Tell me, what opportunities have you had to sort of carry this agenda forward across organizations, in the industry, in the global platform, and how have you been able to play that role? Do tell us what you're doing there, Leena.
Yes, it's a great question, Harish, and a little bit to what we started talking yesterday. I feel very fortunate to work for Unilever because our purpose as a company is to make sustainable living commonplace. And the three beliefs that run through all our strategy: companies with purpose last, brands with purpose grow, and people with purpose last. The reason people with purpose thrive, companies with purpose last, brands with purpose grow. So we passionately believe that doing the right things for our people, doing the right things for society, gets a better business going. Yeah. So our employer brand actually is a better me, because by coming to Unilever, you can have hell of a lot of development experiences and you can grow. But we promise you that you'll get the chance to build a better business and a better world. Yeah? So I'm hugely advocating for a more human-centered workforce, a workforce that allows inclusion and belonging to happen, a workforce where people's purpose and meaningful work matters. Yeah. And I feel grateful because the platform that Unilever has given me, whether it's at Davos, where I've been for the last 4 years, advocating on everything to do with how do we reskill, upskill people at pace? How do we build inclusion? How do we ensure gender inclusion, race inclusion, disability inclusion? How do we ensure that human rights are taken seriously by supply chain? Or I was at the UN General Assembly 2 weeks ago, where again I was advocating for all this. So I feel very fortunate that I'm working for a company where these human values are at the core of the business strategy. It's not something you do on the side when you have time on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday morning. It's the core of my job. The core of my job in Unilever is to build a better business and a better world. So I have tremendous opportunities to advocate for all of this. And I feel very, very grateful and happy to have that platform and opportunities, whether it is doing it through social media or through the number of speeches that I have a chance to give. I personally set a goal that I would inspire 1 million women. So anytime I speak to an audience, like today, I'm going to say, when you finish this, you've got to go and inspire 10 other women that they can do this, because the only way I can meet my goal is if lots of you inspire lots of people. So I would say that integrate it into the core of the business. For example, one of the things we do is we put 100% of our people through Discover Your Purpose workshops. Yeah, where they spend 2 days looking at their crucible experiences, their events that shaped them, and they come up with what's their purpose statement, why it makes difference. So what happens is when you unleash that kind of spirit, human spirit, people start caring about inclusion. They start caring about creating an environment where everybody's voice is heard, creates a more psychologically safe environment. So we work really hard to create a psychological safe environment where every voice matters and every person can speak what's on their mind. So the point I'm making is, for me, it's just part of my role, who I am, the role plays to my purpose. My purpose is to ignite the human spark to build a better business and a better world. And Unilever gives that platform for me to not just do my role to make Unilever better, but to advocate and create the movement to make the world a better place and value human beings, value human potential, value human resources. So it's a beautiful, place to be in. It's a real sweet spot to be in, Harish, to be able to influence and shape all of that. I sit on the board of, the business board of the UK government. So I get a chance to shape UK policy and principles. I sit as a steering committee member for the World Economic Forum on gender, work, and education. I sit on many, many committees that are driving the future of education and how that can be used to drive greater inclusion. So all of that has helped me enormously to be able to just roll it.
Wonderful,
I
wonderful,
live
yeah.
every single day, Harish.
And I love your purpose: ignite a spark to make,
Ignite the human spark to build a better business and a better world.
business and a better world. Yeah, wow, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. and doing it through all these different forums that you're part of, I think that's wonderful too. Yeah, you're not being unidimensional, just a work woman. Yeah. There's an interesting question that Satish Pradhan has put out there. Getting women is one thing, but getting women after a break, that could be a challenge. And what are the experiences around that?
Yeah. Satish, it's great to talk to you through this platform. I'm feeling like this is just friends and family all on the call, and I'm loving it, getting to speak to all of you together at the same time. You know, one of the things we'd experimented in India and now is a global program is Career by Choice, where we bring back women who've had a break into project roles to build back their skills and confidence. Because when you stay away for 3, 4, 5 years, you do become underconfident. You've lost all the business buzz. You don't know what's relevant and contextual anymore. So we do that a lot. Yeah. So Career by Choice, we run that in various countries. And like I explained to you, we have a whole suite of tools for women who are looking to come back. There's job sharing, there's project work, there's part-time work, there is work for 20 weeks in a year, and the rest you don't need to work, etc., etc. All sorts of programs. So my advice would be one size doesn't fit all. One of the lessons I've learned from doing this global role is that one size doesn't fit all. What works in Pakistan simply doesn't work in Japan, and what works in Japan simply doesn't work in Saudi Arabia. So create a slew, a bouquet of options, allowing countries to customize and take what's right and relevant for them to do. So you have to be pioneering and innovating and creating these new work practices to support women to come back to the workplace. Giving them short-term projects, giving them mentors who build back their confidence at work.
Wonderful. Leena, we're going to switch gears. I'm going to move to another aspect with which you have been passionately involved, and Unilever in India has always been known for, which is in terms of winning the war for talent. For decades, Hindustan Lever, now Hindustan Unilever, has been the employer of choice. And one takes it for granted that it will be so. But when you move to Unilever, first as the global talent head, and now as the head of the HR function, I understand that Unilever, when you went there, was #1 in 5 countries. And now I believe it is #1 in 50 plus countries. Wow, that's carrying your trade to the world, Leena. Yeah, so you're really opened your bag of tricks on the global stage. Tell us, it must not have been easy because each country has a very different marketplace.
Yes.
And Unilever's position is extremely different in each of those countries it operates in. Yes. Tell us a little bit about that story and what is it that's really made it happen? And do you think it's going to be sustained?
Absolutely. Firstly, Harish, I have not let the team celebrate yet. So, because unless we get a #1 employer of choice in all 75 markets that we recruit in, I'm going to be at it. So yes, 52 out of 75 markets, we are now #1 employer of choice. We are the most attractive employer, which is really good. I do think people are attracted to a promise that you can do well and do good. Yeah, our simple brand promise is better me, better business, better world. You come to Unilever not if you want to make a ton of money. You come to Unilever when you believe that you want to grow and develop and you want to make a contribution to society and to the world around you. So the singularity of that proposition has been hugely appealing. There's shades. I must tell you, it appeals a little less in China, appeals a little more in India and Indonesia, for example. So there's always shades to it. But by and large, everybody loves the fact that you work for Unilever. You know that business integrity will not be an issue. You know that Unilever will do the right thing, that you don't have to worry about honesty, bribes, ethical considerations, nothing at all. You know by the work you're doing, you'll make a huge difference to the world that you are in. So the proposition has been clear. We do enormous engagement with young students. I mean, we are the 3rd most followed company on LinkedIn. And the other day I was looking at the 2nd most followed company for digital talent after Google, ahead of Facebook, Amazon. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is really cool. I hope digital talent are so excited and inspired by Unilever. This is great. We are #1 for female talent across the world. We are #1 for young talent across the world. So one is for the attractiveness, you've got to create a clear proposition, but you also have your biggest ambassadors are people inside the company. And I'll tell you some statistics that will please all of you. We are on employee engagement at 84% across the world, the best in large comparable companies on engagement. With pride at 93%, we are the number one company in the world of pride of working with a large company. Yeah. And so what I'm saying is when you create an attractive place inside, you have ambassadors who go outside and talk the story. Okay. So we've done all the practical things, which is, build a campaign, activation campaign that attracts people, tell our stories. We have differentiated who we want to bring in. So right from, digital recruitment and the cases that you experience, all of that, you feel this better business and better world in everything you do. And we only want the people who really want to live their purpose and want to make a huge difference to Unilever. So being clear about who you want, making sure that the big theme that young people in society today care about is doing meaningful stuff. So purposeful company automatically becomes attractive. So we are absolutely on trend. People find that attractive. And then, of course, activating, being in touch. I mean, people like Anu and others in the markets have created massive programs to engage young students, constantly know the pulse of what people are looking for, provided experiences, internships. We're going to, we have, I'll give you another number. We have 2 million people who apply every year to Unilever for 20,000 jobs. Yeah, and that number is now getting doubled in COVID time. So I'm really worried about how can we disappoint so many people? And we're thinking about how can we engage them? How can we give them some accreditation? How can we give them some skills? How can we keep them engaged to Unilever? So attractiveness is about clear proposition, the theme we are on, activating it brilliantly in all the markets, being in touch with, listening to the voice of young people everywhere in a very active way. All of that is counted, getting our leaders out there talking about what difference they make. Many, many of you are role models we use in all our campaigns that we tell the students. Many, many of your stories are legends within HUL and Unilever. So that's one reflection. But importantly, you've got to make your internal environment outstanding, because there is no better ambassador for your employer brand than your employee. And ensuring that they are engaged into the journey has been our biggest priority. I can share some general talent reflection, Harish, but I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
I think it is not an easy job in today's world with children, the millennials having ambitions of very different kinds. And I think to hold the stage, it's a wonderful achievement. And I think, like you rightly said, it is not just an HR agenda, it's a business agenda. It's an agenda that is sort of championed by people both within and outside the company in terms of what they have done during their stints in Unilever and post Unilever. In fact, today, it's such a wonderful thing to see alumni. Yeah? When I see alumni of Unilever, they continue to wow people, with their passion, with their activities, and with their multivarious interests and excellence in everything that they do. Yeah, and a lot of them are also engaging the social consciousness of the community. Yeah, I see that quite a bit. And a lot of them, and we had a session a week back when a few of the ex-Unilever leaders spoke about ETA, the experience in ETA, and how it had made them, not just as professionals, but also as human beings.
Yes.
And Unilever and HUL continues to do this. ETA may not be there in our list of environments, but we continue to expose people to socially relevant parts of the world and country. I remember in 2004, the HR leadership team of HLL, when I'd just then taken over, all of us spent a day cooking. And for the children in the orphanage in Bangalore, if you remember. Yeah, we spent a whole day doing that. Yeah?
I think you were a better cook than me from what I remember.
And the leadership in action element in the senior leadership development program of Unilever.
Yes.
Where people are encouraged to take a social project,
work
on it for a few months, and make a success of it. And many folks, well after that, continue a social purpose in their lives. Yeah, I know a lot of people who run trusts, who run, organizations to help the social cause.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about what is Unilever doing in
Yeah.
the social side. I know that Paul Polman championed many, many things, and it's now become part of the ethos in Unilever. Tell us a little bit about the social consciousness that Unilever demonstrates.
For me, Harish, if you cannot do social impact without linking it straight into the business. Yeah? If you do social impact on the side, it'll never get the money, never get the attention. It'll be charitable things we do when we have the time, but it will never gain momentum. So for me, it has to be integrated into business strategy. It's not just a moral case for doing good, it's a business case for doing good. Because when you do good, you reduce costs, you increase growth, you increase trust, you manage risks. And let me give you a couple of examples that make it alive. Okay, Dove is a brand which is beautiful. It stands for real beauty. It tries to break all the stereotypes around beauty. Yeah. Dove, for the last 10 years, has been running self-esteem workshops for young people everywhere. It's really crushing to read statistics that 25% of young women hate their bodies today. It's really sad to see that. What has come of our world where people hate their bodies, their body images? And Dove has been running these workshops. Yeah. Now, on a particular week in the year, all our employees go out to run these self-esteem workshops. I've run dozens and dozens of them where you sit with a group of people. We have fantastic material. We spend 3-4 hours and we try and shape their mindsets and change it. And we've touched more than 50 million people through these workshops. Yeah. Is it good for the world? Absolutely. Is it making a difference to changing norms and behaviors in the countries we operate in? Absolutely. Is it helping the brand grow? Absolutely. Dove has been growing at close to double digit for the last 10 years. So the point I'm making is doing good and doing well go hand in hand. Being a sustainable business that cares about society actually leads to superior performance. We've made big goals on plastics, renewable energy, reducing our carbon footprint. Everywhere we've gone to renewable energy has proved to be more cost effective for us. We've actually saved for the business. Yeah, it makes sense for the planet, yes, but it makes sense for the business too. Or Lifebuoy. So one of the things, Lifebuoy, fabulous soap, its promises, its purposes, it stands for the fact that no child under the age of 5 should die of a waterborne disease. Yeah. And the simple act of hand washing, as we are all learning during COVID times, is your first defense against any virus. Yeah. So really, really important that all this goes hand in hand. So I feel inspired when I see Lifebuoy running its campaigns to encourage everyone to wash their hands. Is the soap growing? Gangbusters. Lifebuoy is growing. But that's not the point. The point is it is truly changing behavior. It's making the world a better place, and it's growing and making a difference to business. So to me, it has to be tightly integrated into the story of our brands. We do a lot of things to bring people out into the front line. So Dove workshops, Lifebuoy hand wash day, for clear resilience. I took the 14-day clear resilience challenge. Each of our brands stands for some good in the world. Yeah. And we all go out and make something happen. I mean, United for America. In America, we ran this beautiful program where all of the employees volunteered during COVID times to distribute food, to write encouraging letters to caregiving staff in hospitals. Everybody contributed a day of their time. So it's really, when you put the community first and the consumer first, you think of ideas to be in service to them. And when you serve them well, your business will grow. And when your business grows, you have the money and the wherewithal to continue to do the right things for society. So it's one virtuous circle. When you put stuff into it, it will pay back. It will make a difference. I mean, one of the things we invest a lot of money in is well-being, physical, mental well-being of all our people. And people say, how do you justify the business case for it? You know, for every dollar I invest in well-being, I get a $2.50 return because people are less absent. People have less mental challenges. People are not taking off sick of anxiety, depression. So to me, all of these things, the return is so much higher. And when you do that, it gets integrated. And nobody says, run self-esteem workshops as a side business when you get time. People see it as the core of the brand, the core of the work we do, the difference it makes. Yeah. So that is the DNA and ethos. And I'm so proud of all our alumni and people like you, Harish, who are going out and making such a difference because it is part of our DNA. And that is done because of the various experiences we build in the first 2, 3, 4 years for our people to go and see what the actual consumer does, to have those consumer connects, hours and hours of it, to know how people live, to do volunteering early in your career. Yeah. Seventh Generation, one of our companies, if you join as a management trainee, you don't even get to the office for the first 3, 4 months. You're sent to an NGO on plastic recycling. Then you go and do a stint on, on people who are working in the area of carbon emissions. You go and research biology and what's happening to biodegradable ways of generating our ingredients. You come into the place after you've opened your mind to what's happening to the environment and the society around you. I think the core of Unilever's DNA, which is what you're saying, all of the alumni have, is that it is so integrated into our thinking. You may be a factory person running a factory HR person sitting in a remote area. You think about the community around you because you know you can't have a healthy business in an unhealthy world. You cannot have a healthy factory in an unhealthy community. So you naturally think about it. And that DNA has helped us make these changes and differences.
Wonderful, wonderful. Leena, in fact, one of the things is that Unilever recruits the top talent in all the places that it goes to. Yeah. And I have seen this, and you and I have been part of the process of selecting people who are not just good in their job, but they're looking for holistic beings, people who are talented in multivarious ways. I've also felt sad that once they come into the organization, they become so unidimensional, working for the function, working for the company, working for the targets and things like that, that they leave the leverage of their talent till very late in life. And I can see that flowering once they are retired, yeah. But how I wish that it is actually brought to bear even while they are within the organization. And for which I know that there are some initiatives, but is it possible for us to leverage that far more, encourage them to set aside time, like you have at this point in time? You say 40% of my calendar is for non-specific work-specific stuff. Can we encourage them to volunteer to their passion? Yeah, can we give them time? Can we give them sabbatical if somebody needs? Yes. How can we encourage more of this? While there might be policies for this, how do we encourage more of this? Any thoughts around that, Leena?
You're talking for people working inside or the alumni?
Inside first, yeah.
Harish, for example, we have a very clear volunteering policy. For every day that you do social volunteering, we give you a day in matching. Yeah. So, and many of companies across Unilever world, there's a standard 7 days volunteering people do, and we give you a day matching. So people end up doing 2 weeks of volunteering in a year, and hugely successful in many countries of Unilever. And you well know the HUL scheme of ETA, and through the year, there are volunteering opportunities on our brands. Like I said, you can volunteer to run self-esteem workshops. You can volunteer to run a hand washing campaign. You can volunteer to go and do a teeth brushing campaign in rural India or rural China or what have you. So I'm completely in agreement with you that we have to dial it up. What makes a difference is leadership commitment. Yeah. If the CEO of the company is not out there running self-esteem workshops, and last year, Alan, in fact, took our families with us. So Kumar was running self-esteem workshops along with me. My children were running self-esteem workshops. It was quite fun, actually, because finally, they really see what a great company this is, because this is having such great ethos at heart. So getting families in to volunteer, it all starts from the top. If your CEO and top teams are seen as going out there, connecting with consumers, doing work in community. I mean, COVID response. We had 5 work streams. One was people, very clear. One was supply. How do we ensure supply chain resilience stay? One was demand. How do we contend with the surging demand we were seeing in sanitizers? Everybody wanted loads and loads of soap and sanitizers, thank God. How do we cope with cash? Because cash is a challenge during difficult times. And community. So on the 5-pronged strategy, community was one of the 5 things we called out as leaders, saying, what are we doing for the community? How much have we donated of health and soap? And we went out very quickly in the process and said, we're donating 100 million to all the communities that work with us and operate with us. So you've got to put it central in everything you do. Community, what you're doing in community has to be valued and put upfront there with everything you do on business.
How do you
And
recognize this, Leena? I hear you clearly. Leaders make the difference. Yeah. So some leaders will promote this and therefore it will be more seen in some companies than others. How do you recognize this kind of social impact work that Unilever companies do? What are you
yeah,
doing about that?
yes. One of the things we do is what we call Heroes with Impact every year, where we call out 10 or 12 people from across the world who have, through their jobs, made a huge difference to the communities around them. They've not only made a huge difference to the business, but they have made a huge difference to the community around them. And they're absolutely stunning stories. The person in Kenya who lost 13 siblings to disease, to cholera, when is and how he went around educating 500,000 children in Kenya on the power of hand washing, driven by purpose, in line with the job that he was doing. So we recognize these stories of people who have, so there are some recognition programs internally for people who bring that. We have what we call brand say and brand do. If a brand says something, we say, what's your matching brand do plan? So if a brand says, like Hellman says, that I want to stop food waste, they can't go out and say that unless they have a brand do plan. Okay, so what is your brand going to do? Thank you, Hellmans, for saying your brand says food waste and reduction of food waste. Tell us the actions you're going to do in the world and the community you're going to do that's going to make that say alive. Because you have to walk the talk. As a company, you have to walk the talk, especially a high profile company like us that goes out on a limb saying we want to build a better business in a better world. Yeah. So those are some of the things that help. Recognition, leadership commitment and behaviors, putting it into the business strategy, brand say, brand do, both are important. Communication campaign, brand say, brand do, both are important. And bringing it alive through people with purpose. Because if people feel purposeful and meaningful about some of these things, they will do it. I do what I do because I'm purposeful about it. I'm passionate about what I do. Yeah. So some of that is really, really important to bring it alive through the people with purpose workshops that we do.
Wonderful.
Let me just,
Mr.
yeah, let me
Balraman is asking a question around the same thing. How does Unilever compare with other companies on this front of social impact? Is there any
We
measure?
have lots of measures. If you see Globe Scan, which is done every year, we are number one in the world on companies that that the global leader for sustainability. We are number one in the world. On the survey done by Edelman on Trust, we are again number one in the world on how other stakeholders see us on improvement. Like I told you, 76% of the people who apply to us, of the 2 million who apply to us, tell us they're applying because they believe this is a company that's a force for good in the world. So it really matters to those coming to us. We, on Dove Jones, we are again the number one leader on sustainability through the Dove Jones assessment. So quite a few studies that we are number one in. But, with all humility, the journey is nowhere near done. We have huge goals we've announced in environment, huge goals we've announced on plastic, huge goals we've announced on disability, race inclusion, more on gender. So we still have a lot of work to do. So I do want to say it's great. We are recognized as a global sustainable leader hugely, lots of efforts over the last 10, 15 years with lots of people on this call who've contributed, but the journey is not over yet. The journey is nowhere near over.
Ram, you have something to ask?
Yeah, Harish, I just wanted to tag you in this beautiful dance that is going on, Leena. So let me, just a couple of comments and then a question, fairly serious question. The first one is that you said that kids choose a nurse or a teacher as a role model or what a woman can do. And we are truly hoping that soon in the future, it's replaced by that of a coach. In all our experience, that's pretty well documented. Women make far better coaches than men. They are far more emotionally intelligent. And the coaching competencies are identical with leadership competencies. So any day, if I were to make a choice, I would take a woman as a leader than a man. And that's what we have done in Kocharia. Magda is 40 years old and she's leading our company in an amazing, amazing way. And it's just a fact. The second is, I entered Unilever accidentally. And according to my wife, I left unfortunately. Even 40 years later, she reminds me of that. And as someone put it, even if you leave Unilever, Unilever lives within you. It's a family, and it
Yes.
bred that in many, many ways. It bred in us values and systems,
Yes.
which has driven us, which has inspired us. And like you said, 40 years ago, almost in ETA, the concept of conscious capitalism, which was not even known anywhere, that thing about that working for the business, the self-interest can do wonders in terms of energizing the community and other people, including around trainees. Many of them became part of the CEO factory as CEOs in many, many other places. The question that I have really, Leena, I don't see you stopping anyway here. You have huge potential. It's not just about HR. You're a leader. You're a leader equally outside Unilever, globally recognized. So if one were to replicate the spirit of Unilever in a much larger way, I think a couple of people had already asked similar questions. What is it that people within Unilever, as well as people like us, Harish and I, many others, Ravi Shankar asked similar question as alumni, could probably be of help in making that happen across the world? As someone said, diversity is a given, but inclusion is an option. And I think Unilever has made that option a compulsion within that company, within its framework, through its policies. How can that be spread?
Yes, I think it's a great question, Ram. You know, a couple of things on my mind, and I'm going to get on the soapbox a little bit about this. You know, one of the things we have to do is move business leaders and investors and shareholder community to value human beings and human resources a lot more. Yeah, I'll tell you a few examples. One is a profit and loss account. A balance sheet today only has people in the cost line. Why? This is 21st century. Even a brand has intangible value. Human beings have no intangible value, no potential, nothing to do other than the cost line. So first we have to change how people look at P&L, balance sheets, etc., to really change the financial language around human capital. The second is we have to together change the conversation on how things like inclusion, or what we call the inner game of leadership, is valued. I mean, we have a very clear leadership model: inner game, outer game. Inner game is more important than the outer game. And inner game is a sense of purpose and service, is learning agility and personal mastery and resilience. Very simple. Your inner game matters to Unilever as much, if not more, than your outer game, because we want to dial up what makes us uniquely human in a world that's going to be dominated by machine learning and algorithms and God knows you. You know, I wrote a stroppy note to McKinsey, and luckily the CEO, of course, reached out. And I said, you guys you write so badly about human resources. This is what you're writing 25 years ago. You need to change the language. And now they have lined up the whole publishing team, and we're now writing articles. I spoke to the dean of Harvard Business School saying, you're not writing anything sensible on HR. So the HR that's written, the HR that's done is still old HR. The modern HR of societal impact, human being have unlimitless potential. Think ecosystem, involve your alumni in. They may not be active people inside your company, but can you use them to live your brand say, to drive, be ambassadors for the better world we need? All of that, all of this pioneering thinking is just staying in the heads of a few practitioners like me. It's not getting translated into what's written, what's taught to HR people across the world. So one big call out I would say is, let's create a real movement for valuing human beings, valuing human potential, valuing the intangible things that people bring to businesses, to the world. Yeah, because that gives us the platform for many of these pioneering and innovative experiences. The second is, I'm very open to any ideas. You know, I don't think I need to have all the ideas myself. I am very open to any ideas. And we have lots of alumni on the call. Starting from India, tell me, what do you think we can do with alumni that will allow the alumni to play a bigger role in our social impact initiatives? We have a huge water foundation in India. Tell me what you can do to help us with the water conservation efforts. You know, we have brands that are doing great work. So I'm really, really open to ideas on how we can get the alumni to be part of our ecosystem, to contribute to the Unilever story, the Unilever movement, and importantly, to build a better world, because that's what we all want to do.
Leena, there is lots of alumni out there echoing, the same sentiment. How can Unilever embrace alumni? How can you leverage the alumni talent? I think they're rearing to go. They don't want to retire from life. Yeah, they might have retired from Unilever, not from life. Yeah,
I would
that's
love
something for you to take back. Yeah.
Please tell me your ideas. You don't have to look far. Anu's on the call. I'm on the call. We'll make it happen. Tell us what's the most realistic way in which we can make all of this happen.
Wonderful.
But
Few more questions coming, Leena. Question R. Yeah, questions are pouring.
I am talking too much, Harish.
Questions are pouring in. So I want you staccato style, quick fire question answer round now. Yeah.
Go for it.
Does Unilever have a system of recruiting leaders to non-competing companies and inviting resources from non-competing companies to work in Unilever? Resources and more specifically, women leaders.
A great
Question
idea.
from Murli.
I'm sure Anu is already working on it. In China, we have 260 talent swaps. People from Unilever who've gone into Alibaba, Tencent, where have you, and people from Alibaba, Tencent, all coming into Unilever. Yeah. Turkey, I just finished a review of Turkey. 180 people who are going and working for other companies. Many cases the swaps have happened. Many cases the swaps haven't yet happened. I'm all for secondments and talent swaps. Late on, it's already successful in many parts of Unilever.
Wonderful. Lata Gupta is asking, how do you see Indian women leaders as professionals compared to those from other cultures, especially on the dimension of resilience and ambition?
I do think I think very highly of Indian women leaders. Yeah, I've met a lot. I think you become naturally resilient, naturally thick-skinned, because you've heard so much criticism through the years of growing up of whether you're good or bad or not. I remember in Kolhapur, one of the most common statements that I used to hear was, your father has 2 daughters and he has a business. How unfortunate is that? Who's going to look after his business? I mean, I can't count it. I've probably heard it like every week, if not every other day. So I think we turn out quite resilient because we've heard all this nonsense growing up that you're not good enough, that somehow you're second class because you're a girl and somehow you have to be limited in your potential. It's funny, when I go to Africa, the women ask me questions like, how do you ensure that you underplay your success so that your husband doesn't get threatened? You can't laugh away at this question. This is a real question. So you've got to help them with things like that. How do I make sure my success doesn't threaten my husband from stopping to support me, etc., etc. So the point I'm making is I definitely feel our Indian women are very resilient because we've gone through a lot to get to where we are. And I'm sharing that Indra Nui is a mentor. She's a real, real sweetheart. But her experience working in America is very different from mine, having worked in India. Yeah. And I do think that learning to be in a factory like Taloja, where there were 1,000 people and dealing with a highly contentious union that, went on, God knows, all sorts of, illegal strikes, really toughened me. Living in Eta, trying to figure out what to do in that village, really toughened me. So I do think Indian women are as resilient, if not more resilient, than women I meet from many, many other cultures. I do feel that Indian women are, however, hardest on themselves. Yeah, the inner critic is one of the strongest, where we say we're not good enough. We're somehow not good enough. The inner critic is also among the highest I see among many of the Indian women managers I meet.
Leena, there's a question from Anusha, who's asking, what pointers would you have to give women in sales roles? Is their lives a little more difficult? Is their challenges a little more tougher?
Yes. I do think sales and supply chain, the lives are harder if you're going to be in manufacturing sites all day, if you have to be in sales side. The one story I haven't told you is about all the loo stories. How do you struggle when you're in sales? There's no loo to go to. Yeah. So one day I'll write a book about loos, just loos, because there's so many funny stories about loos. But that's when you're a trailblazer, when you're the first woman at many things, like many of you on this call are, you do have to be ready for all of that. Yeah. So one of the things we've done in many of our countries, in Pakistan, India, is to mark the areas that are safe and secure for women. It's much more possible, like Bombay metro area, much more possible for a woman sales area, or parts or Chennai, etc., etc. In Pakistan, for example, they had not only earmarked these areas, they would invite the parents to join the woman manager on the sales beat for a week, so that the parents felt comfortable the sales was not a difficult place for their daughter to be in. Just as we have invited parents in parts of Saudi Arabia to come and see the women in the manufacturing shop floor, so they feel comfortable the women are being taken care of. So you really have to create answers. It's not one size fits all. You have to take global frameworks and principles and apply them in local context.
Wonderful. Leena, a question. Are there in the Unilever map today, Unilever companies which operate in un-Unilever-like fashion? I hope not, but is there? A question straight to you. And if so, what do you do to bring them online?
I do think the journey we've been on the last 10, 15 years, one Unilever, getting all the functions reporting centrally, all of that has led to a common set of frameworks, principles. So if you walk into another Unilever company from Dubai to US, you will feel the Unilever buzz and spirit. It looks and feels pretty similar. The sense and smell of the place is the same. But yeah, there is variations. I think the high-powered, high-quality talent we have in India is matched only by a few geographies. You might find that kind of talent in Netherlands. You might find some of the talent in South Africa. You might find some of the talent in Brazil, and so on and so forth. So there is a difference, but I would say the commonality and the homogeneity is a lot more.
Okay. And you have spoken a lot about what women need to do and how they need to do, what leaders need to do.
Yes.
Don't leave the elephant in the room alone. What do the men need to do differently? Question from Mohan Bala.
Yeah, Mohan Bala, well done. Batchmate and friend. Great question. You have to get men to lead for this journey, because men are in positions of influence. One of the moments I've seen when men change their mindset and become more sensitive about these issues is when they have daughters, because then they start asking the question, is the world really fair for my daughters? Maybe not. Maybe I need to do something. So a very important moment is when you have daughters, because then you are really determined to make it a more equal place for men and women. I used to divide the men around me into 3 categories. The 30% who will never change. Don't bother wasting my energy on them, because they will never get it. They are the ones who will ask you questions like, why are you working so late? Isn't your husband going to be upset with you? Or why do women really drive careers so hard? You can have a luxurious life. Your husband is doing so well. Why the hell are you burning both bridges and working like this? Those men I've ignored. I've not spent too much time because I don't have the energy for it. And a third of the men are genuine sponsors, mentors. Yeah. And I would focus all my energy on them. So to men on the call, I say, 1, are you sponsoring women? Sponsor means, are you really invested? It's beyond mentoring. Are you really invested in making sure they reach positions of power and influence? Can you name 5 such women you are really sponsoring? The second is, don't assume. You are the elephant. You do not know what the mouse goes through. Listen, reverse mentor a few young women, talk to them and find out what's going on. Don't assume. Ask them how hard it is to come to work when their child is having a raging temperature. Ask them how they're managing the multiple balls between unwell parents, unwell children, husband who's at the, having a big promotion at work, etc., etc. So listen, connect, be there for them. And last but not the least, make the appointments in any position of power and influence. Balance your slates. If you have 10 jobs to offer, 5 must go to women.
Wonderful. Ram, any questions from you? I have one last question, which I'm holding for the end for Leena. Any questions from your side, Ram?
Not really as a question. Leena, again, probably an extension of the same thing in terms of, as you said, allowing Unilever employees to work in other places and so on. But I'm still looking at you as someone who could be leading this movement that you talked about.
Yes.
Which is what Awake, Aware, Arise is about. And it's just not about the gender discrimination, but it's about discrimination of all kinds.
Yeah.
The inequality that we have, Otto Sharma calls the absencing, that we don't even see what the heck is going on there, which needs to be addressed.
Yes.
So I just, probably any words that you want to say on that.
Ram, I'll tell you a joke. When I just landed in UK 8 years ago, I have always dreamt about wanting to make a difference to the country. I've dreamt about politics. I've dreamt about social change all the time. So I used to happily say, I'd love to be the Prime Minister of India. Now, in Britain, which is so stated, that was like, what? Is this woman mad? She wants to be the Prime Minister of India. She must be crazy. So I had to learn very quickly that all these sort of aspirations, general wishful thinking is not going to cut it in the UK. So I learned to say the usual things. I would love to be, the CHRO. I would like to do a good job as the CHRO. I'd like to make a difference, etc. But heart of hearts, I do want to make a huge difference. I think together we can. I think we can mobilize a movement of women and men who believe in a more inclusive world. And I promise to play my part in it. And in many ways, I believe in the power of serendipity, universe. As it comes, the time comes, I will push harder than anybody else to get us there.
All that I want to say is you can be far better than a PM. That's a useless job.
Yes. Increasingly, politics has stopped inspiring me. So I have to find other ways of driving social impact and change.
I'm hoping that you do exactly what you said, that the woman, when she is asked, she says, I'm focusing on doing my job better.
Yes.
But breaking out of that mold into saying, hey, I'll change this world.
Yes. I say it easily, Ram. I say it easily. I will change this world. My purpose is to build a better business in a world, and I will do everything in my power.
Thank you. Whatever little that we can do, we'll stand with you.
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Leena, you know what? I have seen you close quarters for many years. I've seen you dream big, and I've seen you deliver better. Forget what other people say about you voicing your dreams. I don't know whether you want to voice it, but don't stop dreaming. Yeah, because your dreams have all come true. I've seen every bit of them. However wild they might seem at the beginning, they've all come true. Yeah. And my final question to you, this is in a circle of friends. You are not talking to the UK journalists. What is your dream? I have seen a couple of leaders from Unilever strike it big for the society, for the community, for the world. Rashid of Egypt, who became the foreign minister of Egypt. Mark Rutte, who was my colleague in London. He's now the Prime Minister of Netherlands. I want to now say, what is Leena Menon, my colleague from India, going to be next?
I think I'd love to be CEO of Unilever. I'd love to have a chance to be a different kind of CEO who drives human capital and brings a rare kind of compassion and empathy in how business is done. Yeah, I'd love for Unilever to be the business that shows the world that sustainable business leads to superior performance. And I'd love to be Unilever, the company that shows the world that leaders like all of you and others that this beautiful company has produced can lead in a different way, with compassion for everyone, with empathy, with building a better world. So I'd love to do that. I'd love to have a big impact in society. And like I told you, I'm getting increasingly sort of discouraged by politics, but whichever body has influence, the UN, the World Economic Forum, I would like to find a way. And if I can't find those bodies, then all of us together to create that movement. Let's name it, let's call it, let's create a coalition of the willing. And I'd be more than happy to play my very, very strong role in making that happen. Yes, Harish, I've always been about big dreams. I've never been shy to express them. I've been sometimes laughed at, sometimes told I've been overreaching. I've been sometimes criticized. But hey, with all of your support and loads of grace from the universe, God, what have you, I am living my dream every single day and will continue to do that.
Wow. Don't lose that, Leena. And that's what makes you Leena. Yeah. Wonderful. I've really enjoyed every minute of the session. The pourings from the audience is wonderful. You must go through them. I will request Meenakshi to sort of send them across to you if they vanish away, from your screen. Yeah. It's been wonderful. Wish you the very best. Wish you many more accolades, success. The wind is with you. Our blessings are with you. Our good wishes are with you. Yeah. Go
So
forth and conquer more.
thank you so much, Harish. Really enjoyed it. Like I told you, this is the relaxing moment in my day of back-to-back, God knows what, difficult COVID and otherwise meetings. But I could have answered so many questions. I'm so sorry we couldn't get to all of them, but it's been so, so enjoyable. Thank you, Harish. Thank you, Ram. Had
Thanks,
a brilliant
Take
time.
care.
both of you, for
Cheers.
being here. It was a beautiful dance. Meenakshi, if you could just thank everybody and close. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm just speechless right now. And I've taken copious amounts of notes. And yes, the chat will be saved and shared. Just amazing. A few, takeaways, if I may, for me personally. Love the metaphor that you used of building a house, the building a house of gender balance. Talking about brand say, brand do. And for me, and I put that in the chat as well, I think the same applies for us as individuals when we talk about personal brands and what are we doing. And it is always possible to do good while still doing well and have a planet first business strategy and putting humans where they belong in the center of business strategy. So absolutely phenomenal. Could not have asked for a better way to start my day here on the East Coast of the US. And wonderful, wonderful comments here and a lot of inspiration. Thank you so much, Leena, for being here with us today. And thank you, Harish, for being such a wonderful conversation partner. So absolutely amazing. Thank you, everyone. And I just put we have a LinkedIn group, so the conversation continues there. So please do join us. And the conference continues as well. So we hope to see you back in an hour and a half. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Cheers.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, Meenakshi. Thanks, Hari.